Okay, so here's the Arrow's nose cone. Got it hanging from my double swivel on my bird feeder because that just seems to work. Got it taped up so it doesn't twist so much, but I can still twist the top of it. Going with the old Rust-Oleum primer. I'm going to try and spray as much of the shoulder as I can. It's probably going to get a little bit where the swivel's touching there. It's going to miss a little bit of that, but so what? I'm going to test to see if this actually sticks to this or not. I did sand it earlier in the video, so we'll see how it goes. Been shaking this for about a good solid couple of minutes now. That's the wind going that way. Here we go. We get drips, don't matter, it's the primer, we're going to sand it anyways. I'll probably sand it in a couple of days, give it time to dry. It's kind of cool out, it's October now, even though it's Florida. It's about 50 degrees, probably about more like 60, 70. It was 50 this morning. I think that's a coat. Alright, so one coat primer on the Arrow's nose cone. This is what we got going on. I could have definitely filled in some of that a little bit better. The seam, very barely visible, but the molding, those little wrinkles from the actual mold process are pretty darn visible. So I have to make a decision. Just let it ride, sand it, fill it with the putty again, or just hope that it's not going to show, which from what I'm gathering is, oh, I guess I missed some of the tip. It's okay, it's alright, but the consensus is if it's showing up through the primer, it's going to show up through the paint even if we sand it. But I'm thinking I'm ready to fly it, so I'm going to keep on going. It's been probably about a week since we've done the Arrow's nose cone. I got busy with other stuff. It's definitely very dry. We're going to go ahead and hit it with a 320. So here's the Arrow's nose cone. You can see it. There we go. I got it started on the 320. Kind of hit the tip a little bit. It's already down, back down to the first layer, down to the white plastic. So that's all we're going to do. I'm just going to do this in the shoulder. And then we're going to hit it with the white primer. And then we'll go to 400 grit to sand that off. And then we'll go back to gray, hit it with 600. And then paint. So here we are. 300 grit. And it's a lot smoother. You can see where all the low spots are, maybe where I went a little too deep, but you see where some of the white's showing again? That's alright. We're just going to prep this surface to get actually painted. That's what we're doing. Sand it as much of this as I can. I'm not really worried about getting the shoulder too pretty. I just want to hit it some, because remember, it's still got it can fit snug in this rocket because it's a payloader rocket, so it don't really matter how thick this gets, because it's going to have to fit snug into the payload anyways. So next stop, putting the white coat on. So we're out here with the Arreaux nose cone. I'm going to put on the white primer. It's a windy day. I've already done some painting with the Star Orbiter nose cone, but you can watch that video somewhere else. Oh, probably YouTube on my channel. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a try, the 2X flat white primer instead of the bonding primer. Let's see how this does. It's been out here warming up. Only got a couple hours of daylight left, but this should be fine just to go ahead and prime this real quick. And just probably sand it tomorrow and see if we can get another coat on there and possibly paint it black. Doesn't matter if it gets too thick. Obviously it's got to fit real snug in the payload tube. So we'll get to it. And of course I've been shaking it up for a minute. We are had a bug fly in my mouth. We've been shaking it up for a good minute. Did a couple test sprays. It's flowing good. Brand new can. All right, see what the 2X flat white primer does. Here we go. Even though it's windy and I don't really have the best setup for painting, especially nose cones, how I like to paint them, I do want to try and figure out a way to do them horizontally, at least these type of nose cones. See, the hole's too small to do the stick trick like I've been doing with some of my other videos. Try and get the shoulder a little bit up top. It's going on pretty good. Don't seem to be dripping. Make sure to pay some attention to that. Of course, this is all going to be sanded, so if it's too drippy somewhere, it doesn't matter. See, it is dripping a little bit. I don't know if you can see that. Try not to. Trying to make sure I get the tip plenty. It can drip down to the tip. That's where most of the imperfections were anyways. But you know what? I think that's a coat. Yeah, it's dripped right there. But that'll get sanded off. You see, it's kind of thin right there. Another drip there. Okay, that's that. Okay, finally, let's get to priming the Arreaux. Now, this is a payload rocket, so technically this entire thing is kind of like the nose cone. So we've already been doing the nose cone separately, and we can prime this all together. But when it comes time to paint, I'm going to separate it here. Separate this for the yellow and separate this for the black, and of course the nose cone will also be black, and then we'll put the decals on. I'm curious to see how these are going to show up, okay, because I didn't fill them in. I didn't want to pop them out because I'm going to use the conformal rail guides, so I don't know if that's going to be an issue when it comes time to paint. They're going to seal up in there or not. It could pop out whenever, and I guess then we'll have to go from there. But we're gonna try a lot of things. Now I could have filled this in for the fillets, but I'm not going to. I started doing that on the Sumo. I still gotta finish doing that at this point, but I want to see if this is something that we can get away with. It might just be just fine. I mean, yeah, there's gonna be a couple little bulges here and there, but my main concern is these causing me issues after it's painted. But we're gonna get it primed. I'll come back to you. Another thing I want to point out, what I've been doing since the build's been completed, I've been filling in the other spirals, because you know what, when I was doing the high flyer, some of them were showing up, and I have never painted or primed an Aerotech body tube before, so I'm curious to see just how bad these might show up, because I can't fill that one, but these ones up here, I can feel them a little bit when I scratch them. So I didn't fill them all the way in, but I'm curious. It's kind of an experiment whether they're worth filling in or not. I could probably just prime it and it'll be fine, but I did want to point that out. Alright, so the primer's all warmed up in the sun. I'm shaking it for a good minute. It's a little bit windy today, but it's just a primer coat anyways. I did blow this off and dust it off. There shouldn't be anything except maybe fuzzies that we got to worry about, but it'll get sanded off anyways. Of course, this end right here, I got some paper towel shoved up in there. I might have to pull that back out. I think we're good. We're rotating. Alright, let's get this going. Quit screwing around, huh? Of course, this ain't going to matter because it's a payloader anyways. Now I'm going to lose place of where those are, unless I can still see them through the paint. I was going to put my rail guides there, whether that'd be a bad idea or not. So I'm seeing fuzzies. So I'm going to twist it from both ends. I have to do it at the same time. With both arms, I got to put the phone down. Alright. Let's kind of come from this direction, huh? As long as we don't put enough paint in there to where we can't put the engine in there in and out freely, so yeah, the wind's swirling pretty good. Looks like it's sticking to the plastic fins. I am seeing some of those spirals show up just a tad, just a little bit. Of course, I don't care about this table. It's going to get replaced soon. Not getting, this shouldn't fuse together. Shouldn't have to worry about that. We will paint it separately when we do the base coat. After this, we're going to paint it with the white primer. We're going to sand it first. We're going to sand it with 320. That's been giving me some pretty good results. It should also get rid of all those fuzzies. Missing some spots. It's a little thinner. And that wind did, of course, pick right up. Primer doesn't have to be perfect, but we do want a nice, somewhat even coat. Alright, where do we start? Got fuzzies. It's only been a couple minutes since I quit spraying. Yeah, those fillets, oh, those are ugly. Those are definitely ugly. I might have should have smoothed them in with some Bondo or something, some kind of sealer. That's where we're at right now. Let it dry. Probably for a couple hours, maybe at least for a day. Then sand it down 320. Then hit it with a white primer. Well, hello. I say we watch the sunset and sand this Aeraux nose cone with 400 grit sandpaper that I have in a bowl of water. I'm gonna try some wet sanding. Why not? Put you back on the tripod there, that way you get good view, nice steady view. Kind of hard to sand with one hand. So we're on the second coat, the white coat with the Lock that focus right there. So on the second coat of this, all I did was just dunk this into the water for a little bit. And I just wanted to try some wet sanding. We'll see what all the hype's all about. And I'm doing it with the blue, whether you can use that as wet sand or not, I'm not sure. So, I'm going to just kind of try and get some of those drips out of there. Let's see what this wet sanding is all about. Kind of just hitting the tip a little bit, kind of rounding like that. Well, I'll tell you much. I mean, it is dusting up, but it ain't like flying everywhere. So let's flip it over here. Just gonna sand it back down to the gray, kind of like how it's getting right there. I don't want to go too deep, just when it starts turning gray a little bit. Just knocking all the high spots down, bringing the low spots up, flattening it out. I haven't even dunked it back in the water yet. We're powdering up still a little bit. I could dunk it in the water. Let me dunk it in the water. How about that? Alright, I'm gonna have to give this a wipe. Now this is plastic. I haven't tried it on a cardboard body tube yet. Look at that. See that's all I pulled off. But it's not like dust everywhere. I kind of like that. I might be sold. Let's see. Is it a smoother sand? Well, it's not like when you're sanding sometimes how it kinks up. Like it's, you know, it does seem like that little bit. It's just water. No soap, no nothing else. No Windex. It's just water out of my sink. I'm trying to kind of go in a circle, but, you know, on a rounded surface like this, yeah, it's kind of whatever. See, that's how caked up we are. 400 grit. In case I haven't said that a million times already. Say that 1,000,001. Get you some sanding action here. Look at there. Let me dunk that back in the bowl of water. Or we can just kind of. Hey, I tell you what, it's coming right off. I like that. So maybe it does extend the life of the sandpaper, and the sandpaper is not like falling apart. So maybe the blue is wet sandable. You know, I can't really find anything on it being wet or dry, but it is like automotive type, so why not? See, I got it kind of cleaned off. See, I can even got it even more cleaner, but I'm just trying to keep her going. We're just kind of turning this into a mud, like a slush, like a slurry, primer slurry. So far, I might just be all about this wet sanding. I've never really done it before, to be honest, but I did want to give it a try at some point. Probably need a bigger bowl of water. See, we still got like some of that imperfections in the mold process right there. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna go ahead and switch to my other piece. It's been soaking in here for a while. Let's see what we do here. I got 2 pieces of 400. I got another smaller piece of 400 too. I also have some paper towels handy. Just trying to get some sanding done before it gets too dark. Dedication, guys, dedication. Trying to get these things built, painted and all purdied up. I'm tired. I'm just kind of sitting in my build pile. I've actually had the Arrow built for a while now. I just got to do the finishing. You know, it just kind of stares at you. Please finish me. I don't sit on your shelf unfinished forever and bother you. Make you feel like a real punk. And, all you can do is build, you can't paint. Well, I don't know if you guys have voices in your head like that. Hopefully you don't have any voices in your head. Well, hopefully at least they're your voice. It is getting caked up pretty good. Alright, I'm going to come back to you after we get this shoulder done, so you see where I'm at right now. So here's what we got. Wet sanded. And maybe tomorrow afternoon, or maybe I'll have time to put the final coat on there, gray. And for the record, that white primer actually worked pretty good. So I guess that's usable. Okay. With the way the fillets were showing up through the primer, I decided that I'm going to try and smooth these out with some Bondo putty. This right here looks hideous right now, but when I sand it, it should smooth out and kind of at least smooth it out. Maybe not be the most even fillets, but all that cracking and stuff should be pretty smoothed out. And if not, we'll do. I haven't sanded this yet, so this is a day later. This has not been sanded. I still got to sand this with 320, so I'll sand this as well. I probably could have sanded it and then put this on, but we're gonna try and see what can happen if I do it this way. Yeah, because that's looking pretty rough. So I'm just taking the Bondo and just taking a popsicle stick, and actually also taking the old toothpick and getting it in there. I'll show you. So I might even just start off with the old toothpick and just kind of try to get those deeper crevices. This side's not so bad as the other side, but what I also do is I get kind of up here because I can't really get it with the popsicle stick so much right here. So after that, I'm just taking a little bit like that and just kind of almost like peanut butter. And yeah, this stuff's pretty rank, so don't get high on the supply. Try not to make it too thin. See, it leaves about that much on there. I'm just kind of working it in there. This could go horribly wrong, but it can't be any worse than the way the fillets already are with the super glue fillets. So that's already dried on there. I can kind of smooth that out a little bit and probably get some right here too. The fin's still got to be sanded again for the primer. It seems to be sticking to the primer pretty good. That was kind of my main concern. Was this stuff even going to stick to the primer paint? So it is. That's a good thing. Don't mind that. That's just my idea. That's what you heard was a bright idea. Okay, so now I got some left on here, right? This is looking like, so I can kind of squeegee that off, or squeegee it on. See where we're missing any. Kind of a little bit right there, actually. Probably thicken that up a little bit. There's a little hole right there. And we'll give this like a day or so to dry. All that seems to be filled in. See, this right here is not really super filled in. We'll just try to even it out when we're sanding it. Try not to let it go to waste too much. I think that's about it though. See how it goes when it comes time to sand. And yes, this is purely cosmetic. This has nothing to do with strength. This is 0 strength, just looks. Okay, so we're back out here. Gonna put the gray coat on it. This is the results. You might be able to see it better today. This is the results of the wet sanding for the 400 grit. And now we're gonna put the final gray coat on there. Conditions are pretty favorable. Wind's going that way, and there's hardly any wind. It's gotta be less than 5 miles an hour. So, without further ado, let's get that last coat on there. I think that's about it. That's all we need. A little bit of drips on the tip, but so what? It's looking pretty darn smooth. Don't see hardly any lines, or really the imperfections are showing up a little bit right there on the tip there. But you know what? I think it'll be fine. The main mold line is not showing. So it's time to let it dry. We'll get the sand in probably tomorrow. Alright, so I wanted to give you an update on what's going on with the Arrow. So, I got this sanded with the 320. And I don't know if you can tell the difference. But that right there got it real smooth, and it removed all the fuzzies. So this all worked out pretty good. Now I just got to do the bottom. Now, I got those all filled in. See, now I sanded one, I sanded that one, and I sanded that fin. And it's smooth to the touch. And I sanded the back side as well, but you can kind of tell the difference. And it looks horrible now, but when it gets painted, I'm sure it'll be fine. So I'm just showing you the difference in the sanding of the payload section versus the booster section. And we're going to get the sand in those next, and of course the rest. So I think I owe you guys an explanation what's going on here. This is probably absolute terrible idea. I probably would have been maybe somewhat better off just leaving the super glue. I probably should have never even made the super glue fillets in the first place, because it's not really moldable. If I was going to do any kind of fillets, I probably should have did epoxy. This is probably making a lot of you scream right now, like, what are you doing? But you know, I'm doing it because now I'm kind of going to have to do it, and probably going to have to eat whatever results I get now. So this is probably going to be more horrible than I expected. And of course, it's a lot more sanding work. I still got to sand this section here, which I'm about to do. But this right here, now that I'm thinking about it, this probably was a bad idea. Of course, we won't know till we start putting the paint on and maybe the next coat of primer, which hopefully I can get done today, because the upper section's already done. So this is probably, there's all these little crevices and stuff like this right here is probably definitely going to show up. Okay. So if you ever make an Aerotech kit, probably do not make CA glue fillets, even though they might look somewhat smooth and somewhat decent. It's probably, it's definitely worse than wood glue. And if you were to do kind of fillets, yes, go with epoxy or some other kind of, whatever your favorite fillet material is. But we're going to get to sanding here in a second. Oh boy, here we go. This is a big giant regret. I'm definitely going to learn from this. I will not do it anymore, even though, since I do have multiple rockets in the process of building and filming at the same time, I also got my Sumo going. I'm doing the same thing with the Sumo. And this is probably all going to be a big giant mistake that I will not do in future builds. Now I do have a piece of cardboard, which I'll probably use on one of the fins to kind of show you what I'm trying to do. The sun's not working for me right now, but hopefully you guys can still see what I'm doing. So I'm just kind of, this is a fresh sheet by the way. I'm just kind of keeping it curved a little bit. This is 320, and just working it, kind of getting that initial shape, and you can see where it's lightening up where you're actually hitting. And I'm just trying to get it all light. And like on this side, yeah, I went down to the tube, and I hope that's not going to cause problems. But I'm probably making way more problems than I needed to do. No one's told me not to, but I haven't asked either. And of course, if you do see this video, if it does make the final cut, well, it'll all be something we can learn from, what we can and can't get away with. It's just gonna, I could probably get some decent results. It's just gonna require a lot more sanding. Even though this is pretty easy to sand, I mean, it's coming right off. I mean, you can see how it's just caking, powdering right off. And there's the good thing about that Bondo putty. It's easy to sand. And so is that wood filler as well. But I'm just really trying to focus on these fillets first before I start working on the body tube. Try not to breathe too much of that in. Wear a mask. Maybe I'll actually wear a mask one day just to show you guys that, you know, it's possible for me to do so, and you should too. That stuff's pretty rough to get in your lungs, so definitely try not to do that. So I'm just kind of just trying to hit it all to where it turns that lighter pink color. And to be honest, it is pretty smooth to the touch. And you know what? It'll still be flyable. It just won't be as cosmetic as I was hoping. Probably could have just totally left it alone. But I don't have to make fillets at all. I think I've heard a couple statements to where people don't even worry about it when they make Aerotech kits. Just slap the fins on and let it ride. Paint it. Look at me trying to be an overachiever. Like I know what I'm talking about. Whew, getting dust everywhere. Alright, I'm going to come back to you guys. This is the results so far. And of course the wind's blowing my sandpaper everywhere. I've got to get a setup of some sort to sand and paint. I'll come back to you when this is sanded to my best ability. I'm not going to put hours and hours of work into this. We're just going to have to eat our mistake. And maybe if I can teach you guys something, that sometimes we're going to have to eat our mistakes. And maybe be a little embarrassed at the club. When John comes over and asks you, what the hell did you do? Yeah, you probably shouldn't have done that. Okay. I'll hit you guys in a little bit. Okay, so this is what we got going on. Got this one done. Got the fin itself actually sanded. So this fin, that fillet, this fin is done. That's probably about as done as I'm going to get it. I might see a couple little things here and there, but I want to show you guys something. Like I can actually teach you something. I got a piece of cardboard with some 320. Just holding it just like that. I don't have it taped to it or anything. I just got cardboard that's literally just bent over. See? And I could take that and kind of shape a little bit. Now, of course, there's better things to use, but in a pinch, I can kind of help out a little bit. So I'm just going to take it like this and just, you can kind of go like at an angle like that or a little angle like that. Just kind of get your initial shape done. That might actually help shape it a little bit more quickly than trying to just hold it with your hand. It'll stay a little more uniform. I know that technique's used with epoxy. Of course, we're still gonna have to get in there. Taking it back off. Put it on, taking it back off. Of course, we still got to do all the priming. We got 2 more coats of primer at least. You know, I probably got away with just putting more primer coats on it, and then the paint and those, that probably wouldn't have showed up as bad as I thought. I mean, I could have just maybe filled in with the little pinholes here and there, and didn't have to go this extreme. But this is what I'm doing, and I'm gonna have to deal with it, no matter what results I get now, I guess. I'm not throwing it in the garbage. No, we ain't there yet. It's still flyable, just gonna be a bit ugly. They make more flexible sandpaper for just such an occasion, but I don't have any just yet. But I will have to be giving it a try. I don't have a belt sander. I don't have an orbital sander. At least not for this type of use. Alright. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and just switch to my hand. And just kind of push it in with my finger, my middle finger, and I'm just watching. Yeah. Let's see. There's a lot going on right here still. Just kind of pushing it with my index finger now. Just kind of getting in there. So that's not too bad, but yeah, I laid it on thick right there. All right, we'll come back to you in a minute. So this is going to be the moment of truth. I'm going to go ahead and paint this in flat white. We're going to see just how bad this stuff shows up. Without further ado, we're all shook up, we're not clogged. Got it wiped and sprayed off. Let's do it. Look at that crack. That crack showing up. Man. I might have to put a couple coats on. If I can redeem myself with this or not. If I put a couple coats on, maybe it'll kind of fill it a little bit better with the paint, the primer. I really don't know. Wow. It's pretty rough. Because it did crack, I guess because I put it on so thick. So maybe Bondo's not the answer for this. I just wasn't sure how it was going to adhere to the plastic. If I really lay it on thick, it's kind of filling it up though. Maybe a couple coats might save us, I don't know. If I just kind of let that dry, we'll see. I'll come back to you. So here's my results right now. I have double and triple coated this, and you can still see somewhat, but I mean it did help it. It did help it. We might get away with it. I don't know. Sand the crap out of this layer with a big old fat run right there, but that's okay. We might get away with it. We might get away with it, but I'm never doing CA fillets ever again. I promise you guys that. I promise you that. Yeah, see? This is going to take a while to dry, so I'm definitely not doing anything else with this today. Whew, okay, so maybe it's not so bad. Alright, cool. It's time to paint the Arrow nose cone. I got it kind of clamped on and taped on right there. I got the box. I could put it inside here, but I'm not. And it's not too windy, so here we go. Get the can ready. Alright, so we're all wiped off. Can's warmed up. The old Gloss 2X. We're all clear. Weather's fine. Shaking up. Let's do this. It's alright, goes on kind of light. It'll fall off my stick the way I got it. Always doing this stuff kind of sketchy. I think that's one coat. That's coat number one. I'm gonna leave it alone. I don't see any drips. I see some orange peel and some little bit of dusting. And the imperfections that were in the cone itself are still kind of showing up, but hey, this is almost done. Alright, it's been a couple minutes. We'll go ahead and get this party started again. Second coat. Alright, I'm gonna start where it's looking kind of light. I think I'd rather the dusted look than the run look. think the dusting can be fixed. A little bit of polish. But it is going on pretty wet. That nice wet look that I want. Oh no, I think we're about to fall off. I don't want that. That could definitely make this go wrong. I think it's slipping. Alright, we have to fix this. I didn't want to do this vertically, but until I figure out another way to do this, especially with these type of nose cones, I was able to transition to the good old paint hook and the old paint tree. So thankfully it didn't fall into the dirt. Just don't want to do it too much. I think I'd rather take a little bit of a dusting than runs. All right. That's it. I promise I won't hit it no more until it dries a little bit. Because if it just gets dusted, I can polish that up. I think we're good for now. Final coat time. Final coat time. So far we've had good luck. Thinking it'll be all right. Do we got any drips? Yeah, a little bit of dusting. And there's not really a whole lot of artifacts or anything that I see showing up through the paint. Guys, I think we got it. So what if some of that shoulder isn't hit? It's gonna be hidden in the payload for the most part anyways. Just the extra thickness of the paint coat is gonna help keep it snug, the friction fit, unless I use some kind of screws or something to hold it in place. Nice. Let this dry. We'll take a look at it here in a little while. I'm gonna leave it out here probably till it gets dark, and then we'll mess with it again in about a week. Let it cure. All right. So with the Arrow, and I got this fin sanded, 400 grit. As you can see, we got a lot going on here. Some of it's still pretty rough, especially on this side. I think I went all the way back down to the tube right here. I went all the way back through the gray primer down to the white tube. So that went pretty deep. It's me trying to smooth out some of the crevices in there. And I went ahead and did the fin on both sides as well. And the edges. The back edge is kind of working. I might have to work on that a little bit more, but I haven't done none of these yet. And this is of course a couple days later after I let it dry, and I still got to do the rest of the rocket. But this right here is what I really wanted to show, just like right about where we're at with it. So we're gonna see with maybe another coat of primer just how rough it's going to look, and you know what, I'm just going to eat it. I don't want to work on this forever and ever and ever. I'll just never do CA fillets again. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm just taking some 400 grit and just kind of curving it with my especially my middle finger, and just going back and forth. We're just trying to smooth this out, just like we're always doing when we're sanding. We're just trying to smooth it out, lower the high spots Just even out the high and the low spots, right? And I'm trying not to hit the body too much. I really just want to try to focus on the fins and those fillets. That's what I'm really trying to focus on right now. I'm not trying to press too hard, but somewhat firmly. This is just what I'm trying to do. Right about when I start seeing that red Bondo. Figure out how to get that edge. Might have to get in there with a sanding stick. A little bit of pink on there. I'm starting to hit that Bondo. I mean, it is definitely smoothing it out. I can feel it. I can feel the difference. We might have to put on an extra layer of primer or two before we finish this up for paint. This is what I'm trying to do, and of course I got to redo the rest of the body. Get it back down to the gray, and I'll get back to you when I'm done doing this. I'll show you my results. So I got the payload section sanded with the 400 grit. Now I'm going to do this separately from the bottom section. Okay, I got this wiped off. I got this blown off. This should be about as clean as it's going to get. I want at least one coat of primer to go on the shoulder. I got this sanded extra. I sanded and rounded off all this, the bulkhead here, because it was kind of snagging in and out of the shoulder of the booster section quite a bit, the lower body tube. And I sanded it, and then it was snagging just a little bit. And then when I just sanded it just now with 320, I really went to town on it. And now it's just coming in and out smooth and almost a little bit too loose. So I'm hoping that when I primer this one last coat and this right here, and I paint it black, 3 coats of black, that it'll be sliding in and out nice and smooth, but not stuck, not too snug, because that's what you want. Without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get this last coat of primer on here, and of course the first coat for here. Oh no, and only coat of primer. And of course, because the upper part's supposed to be black and the lower part's supposed to be yellow, it'd just be easier to separate them anyways. But I got the primer all shaken up. We're not splattering. I got the eye bolt taped up on that dowel rod there, so I'm not going to hit the eye bolt. I'm trying to keep that metal looking instead of black. Well, I guess I lied. I guess we are spattering a little bit. Good thing it's the primer, right? It should be like my motto. Good thing it's the primer.com. So we got some fuzzies right there. I guess I hit that kind of hard, but that's all right. we gonna sand it till it's smooth. Cause I'm just gonna go ahead and hit this with the whole thing with 600, even that. So I may or may not have to give that shoulder a little bit extra work. But if I do, we're just gonna make sure that it slides in and out of the rocket. Nice and easy, that's all I want. I just want it black instead of white. It just would look odd to me. Okay, this can's actually getting low, but we'll let this dry, see if we can get this sanded within the next day or so, and then we can go ahead and put the black on it. So it has come time to put on some form of launch lug, rail buttons, rail guides. Well, I'm going to use the rail guides that came with this originally. So these already have a bit of a curve, and it's like they're got like a roughness to them, like they're 3D printed or something, and one side's a little more rougher than the other. That's the smoother side. So I might have that face on the inside like this. Now, since it is curved, yeah, it kind of will sit there, and I am going to put them where those holes would have been for the launch lugs, because what else are they going to do? You're going to pop them out and there's going to be holes there anyways, right? So that's why I filled them in. So I'm assuming that's what you're supposed to do, is put them here and there. There's literally no other instructions for them. So I could have went with the launch lugs, but I wanted to try out the rail guides. I've never done rail buttons or rail guides before, to be honest. So this is going to be something new. So I'm thinking 30-minute epoxy, and I roughed this up with some 220 grit. So this is it. This was hit with the 400. I'm going to put that last layer of primer on here, that gray primer, and then I'm going to hit it all with 600. I'm not really going to hit these too much. And I think 1 coat of primer and 3 coats of paint shouldn't add like any unnecessary thickness or tackiness, so they'll slide up and down the rail just fine. Now let's take these are the ones that are supposed to go on the Sumo, and they have a shape to them. And I'm assuming that they would go facing this way towards the nose cone. I don't think they would go that way, or one facing this way and then one facing this way, or the opposite. So these are symmetrical. But I'm going to use 30-minute epoxy. And I got a new toy. I hope I'm not red flagged for buying this. So it's pretty sensitive. So I'm going to get the mixing, and I'll see you guys in a minute. The only concern is getting these straight. They can't be sitting cockeyed like that, one like this and then one right there. And they can't be at an angle. They got to be straight. They got to be lined up and straight. So that's the main concern. And then after that, it should be good. All right. So I'm going to take a Q-tip that I should have handy. Use it as an applicator. I'm thinking it's not going to take much, is what I'm thinking. 30 minutes should be pretty darn strong. And And if it smushes out when I apply it on down, it's not like it's a 20-pound rocket. And it should dry on clear anyways. Now, I probably could have drew a line or something. Probably help. Probably should have done that. I didn't. And 30 minutes should give me plenty of time to get this lined up. More than enough. Way more than enough. Too much time. Too much time on my hands. But it's mostly for the strength. And to be honest, the strength probably isn't even that necessary. Because it's just launch lugs. And like I said, it's not a 40-pound rocket we got to worry about. So now, I'm kind of sliding it back and forth to kind of flatten it out, push it out. And then I'm just kind of pushing down. It seems to kind of contour to the shape of the body tube. Now, I'm going to have to see if I can line it up. Let's see, I'm going to eyeball. I'm going to use my eyeball. But, I do have a piece of angled aluminum, but it's kind of long. I mean, it's a long piece, and it doesn't really fit. But I wonder, maybe I could just kind of do a little something like this, and just kind of get an idea of maybe. No, that's not going to tell me if it's straight or not. I just lined it up. And I can't really get you a good shot like that, but I mean, they actually are looking somewhat lined up just like that. I mean, is it the end of the world if they're a little bit off? I think they'd snag. I have a small enough angle iron. Let me get to you here in a minute. So I think the main concern is whether they're sitting like this or like this. It's not necessarily if they're maybe a little off. One's here and then one's there. I think definitely you just don't want them sitting like this, and they're looking pretty straight. They're looking pretty straight. You just don't want them snagging on the rail. So, even if this wasn't the end of the world, which I hope it wouldn't be, if I did screw this up and it's just not going to fit on the rail, it's giving me problems, I could probably figure out launch lugs or something on another side. Maybe even rail buttons. But I'm going to give these a try. They're kind of interesting, so I think we'll be alright. Here we are the next day. We got to work on this a little bit, get this sanded so I can get it painted black. Got to get these fuzzies off. I already kind of hit it a little bit just for S&Gs with the 320, and it was coming right off. I was just rubbing it across, not even putting any pressure on there, and it was coming right off. So I might, for S&Gs, do 360 or 320 grit, and then 400, and then 600, all in one coat, barely putting any pressure. And of course the rest is going to get actually hit with 600. And this has been sitting all night with the 30-minute epoxy, and it is not coming off, and I'm using pretty darn good amount of pressure. I've been squeezing it, moving it, whatever. I think this is ready for primer.